Hello, hello. This is Elizabeth and Elton Brewington, and we are with Discover Brightside, a video podcast. And I'm so excited to have Jerome in my studio today. He's French Canadian. He's an author, actor, visual artist, and an educator. And he's going to tell you all about his books, and we're going to talk in particular to this new book that he's launching, The Day of Epiphany. So over to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. You've had such an interesting time, and you're an award-winning author. So I'm excited to meet you.
Thank you very much, and likewise, this is very exciting to be here. The I don't. I often get asked this question, and to this day, I'm really not sure how to begin, because my story, my background is quite varied. There's the author chapter, and then there's the actor chapter, and everything prior to that. Um, and so and they do get kind of mingled to a degree. Right now, as you said, I'm primarily working as an author. I do some acting a little bit still nowadays, and spend a lot of time teaching French. I live in Toronto, where my writing career sort of started late in life. Um, I got started on my first novel, The Perpetual Now, uh, and I was already 50 years old. This was my first stab at it, at writing. It's something I thought I could do sort of intuitively. Um, as I've been pretty good at putting words together and telling a compelling story, and I had ideas that I wanted to share, that I wanted to get out of my system. And life kind of was always intervening and saying, well, yeah, and I didn't have really much of a background or people to turn to, uh, you know, to just kind of acknowledge that, and until about 2013, and then uh, I just decided that one day. I mean, I was encouraged, just put it down, just write it down. Doesn't matter if it's any good, just write it. You can't edit something that's not there, which has been my attitude ever since. Um, my first novel took about, let me think now, about 6 years to write. I didn't really know what I was doing at the time. Um, and I went the route of self-publishing because I didn't have any kind of writing pedigree at all. And shopping around first-time author, with a book that was going to be about 400 pages. That was kind of that was a tall order. And so I went the route of self-publishing, and it came out, and I was very, very pleased with it. I submitted it for some forms of recognition, and lo and behold, something called the Best Indie Book Awards got a hold of it and awarded me their award for science fiction, which was which was lovely and a little odd, seeing as I didn't submit it as a science fiction book. Yeah, you go figure, right? It's kind of a crossover of a coming of age sort of sci-fi mystery sort of thing. Mostly a coming of age, takes place. It's a kid about 12 years old growing up in a small town. Um, and so that was very encouraging. Um, and so when I knew right away, like I mean, as I'm going through the publishing process for this thing, I'm thinking of other things already, thinking of other stories. I wanted to write a story set at the time when my parents were in their 20s. So
Wow.
1940s and 50s.
Yeah.
And when I started doing that, I stumbled upon the story of the story that kept coming up, particularly in the province of Quebec, was the story of the Duplessis orphans, which is a really tragic tale that none of my English speaking friends were aware of. People in Quebec know all about it, but my English speaking friends didn't had never heard of it. And oh well, this has to be told. This has to be told. And I wrote it fast. It took me about a year of actual writing, and then a lot of editing and tweaking and so on. But I had the core of the story down in record time because it was such an immense story, and something that was so compelling to put down.
Wow. And I'm
Yeah.
intrigued because it's just, I lived in Quebec. I mean, I lived in Montreal for a year
Mm.
and I worked there. And I always say meeting people in Quebec is like experience you will never have in any part of the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
because of these stories, and a lot of them are real. So
Mm,
it's different when you have people telling you stories that are not real, but the things that happen in Quebec have not
mm,
happened anywhere else. So
yeah.
this is important, especially in this day and age when
Yeah.
we are really talking about our future, which is our
Mm,
children. And I
yeah.
think it's horrific how we treat our children and often
Yeah. Yeah.
foster homes, and
Yeah.
it's just
Hmm.
terrible.
It's
Somebody has to do something better for kids.
oh,
Um,
yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and America is one of the richest countries in the world, so there's no excuse that
Mm,
children are left behind. So
mm-mm.
that must have been a lot of research on your end.
It
How
was.
long did it take for you to put the book together?
Putting the book together, oh gosh, I think I started in 2018. Um, when really getting started, and I didn't really start the writing until about 2023.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was all just poring over um, documents and testimonies from survivors, um, and just getting just immersing myself in this period.
Yes.
Um, and you mentioned Quebec being just so different. There is no real other jurisdiction like it in North America.
No.
It is unique.
It is very
It is
unique.
a completely um, sort of it is a culture that is its own and doesn't really owe much to any other. Um, uh, in that, I mean, yes, we're North America, and we use the same sort of media, but the culture itself, the stories, the songs, the literature, the oh God, the cooking. I mean,
That
it is very
is
much, yeah, it
7,
is.
8, 9 course meals. I mean,
Oh my goodness, they're getting better. Oh my goodness.
yeah.
So it is, and just this way of thinking that I mean, that was right up until about 1960, that was sort of frozen. And then, during the 1950s, there was this slow awakening as to, what was going on in the rest of the world. TV helped a great deal there. Um, because during all this history, and we're talking going back to the early 1600s, the dominant sort of force in the province of Quebec was the Catholic Church.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people were very devout, and they lived in small rural communities for the most part. Um, and the church was kind of the center of everyone's community. Um, and the church was also given a great amount of authority by the state, by the province. And so it's in essence had a stranglehold over all matters pertaining to um, education, health, and social services. So hospitals, schools, and in the case of this, orphanages. And
And
so they could did
what
kind of what they wanted. There was no
they
one
could
they really had to report to.
they could do whatever they liked, and
Yeah,
nobody could question them.
no one would question them. No.
Yeah, it's terrible. So I'm glad you wrote the book. So you wrote the book, you said, for people to know about this story.
Yeah,
And then how did those people react to your book? Because you wrote
shock.
to them, you wanted to tell them about the story. How
Yeah.
did they react? Did they accept it? Were they upset?
Uh, I think they accepted it because it's easy to do when there's a certain distance. You know. Um, and kind of without really thinking, well, I mean, and I'm talking about the English speaking audience in Canada, which is most of Canada, obviously. Um, and because it happened in Quebec, which is unfortunately still often regarded as be, because the society is so different, it almost is regarded as a separate country on its
It
own.
is,
And
but it is a separate country.
well, it is a separate nation. Yes, I will say that. I will grant
So,
that.
yeah, so
But it
I
is. But there is a sorry. But there is a kind of a very difficult wall for information to get through,
yeah,
and stories don't leak out. You know. Now, I will say that the stories that this book tells were sort of kept under wraps or weren't talked about much until the late 1980s,
Yeah.
when the testimonies started to come out. And there's an author named Pauline Gill who wrote the first definitive kind of account of what occurred. And just as just as this was breaking, and more people were coming out, survivors were coming out, speaking out. Um, there's something else that happened that in elsewhere in Canada that sort of stole the spotlight for English speakers, and it was the Mount Cashel. It was a boarding school for boys in Newfoundland, and there was terrible accounts of terrible abuse there, and there was a royal commission set up to investigate it. That drowned out what was happening in Quebec for the media.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, to answer your question, how did people react? They were shocked. And I'm talking about grown adults, people, my age, who, how did this get by me? I never heard anything about this.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, Quebec know this story. Quebecers know this story backwards and forwards. They're taught it in school, and even, there was a funny instance when I was trying to dad-splain, right, to my daughter about this story. And she stopped, and she was, I guess she was probably in her late teens. She stopped me. She said, "Oh, I know all about this." And I said, yeah, they were taught us in school. She went to a Catholic school, and to their credit, they got in front of it. They said, "Yes, this happened. This happened in our province. This happened on our watch." And and reparations had to be made. We didn't hear about it outside of that. We didn't hear about it in English language Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, we as a society, we have stopped caring because, we see a crime,
Mm.
we know something bad has happened, but we compartmentalize ourselves because we just, we've had this job,
Mm-hmm.
we're answering to people, we go to
Sure.
church, we're answering to our churches. So we're kind of blinded by,
Mm-mm.
and we're not really living because, living is caring about people, doing
Yeah.
things, getting out of your
Yeah.
comfort zone. And so you're
Yeah.
really like a share, just living a life like that. And it's sad because majority of people are living like that today. So I'm
Mm.
glad that you wrote this book to like really shake people up and say,
Mm.
start thinking about this.
Yeah.
The whole Epstein thing is just unbelievable. How much cover up we've seen right
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
mainstream,
Yeah.
and we still haven't seen any arrests or
That's right.
justice for the victims. We still haven't even given evidence to the victims so they can file their lawsuits. And these people are trillionaires and billionaires.
Mm-hmm.
What would it cost them to settle with these women? Nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just this whole thing is just, so I'm glad that you wrote the book. I applaud you for writing the book.
Thank
And
you.
it takes courage to, give back to a book like that. So
Mm.
how does it end? And you don't have to tell my readers because we want you all to buy.
Right.
But where do you end? Do you end with questions? Do you end with someone thinking about other
Yeah.
orphanages or what we can do in today's generation?
That is an excellent question. That is an excellent question. Now this book, there's only been one other book, one of the two actually. There were sequels, but those that talked about this story. Joanna Goodman wrote an excellent book called the School for Unwanted Girls. And it took a different tack from different approach from mine. It dealt mostly with what happened to the mother of these children who were left for adoption. And it delves a lot into the English-French question. And mine doesn't touch that. I deal with what really happened to the kids. We're talking children from the ages of newborn, but 3 mostly, right up to 16. And so I spend a lot of time showing kind of the gradual degradation. It's not all that gradual, and it happens in the space of a year and a half. But these are orphanages that provided but not a whole lot for the kids. They provided a basic education, showed them some skills, place to live, and it wasn't much of a life to start with, right? And this is all through the 30s, 40s, and 50s. Then in 1954, the premier of the province, his name was Duplessis, Maurice Duplessis, decided that he could increase the federal subsidy, the money that the federal government gave to the provinces for children, if he could double it if he were to reclassify these orphans as psychiatric patients.
Okay.
So you got about a little bit more than double the money per person per day for psychiatric patients than you did for orphans. And so there he reclassifies just arbitrarily kids. There's nothing inherently physically, mentally wrong with them. They're just, I mean, they're living a tough life. They're living in an orphanage, but they suddenly become overnight at a stroke of a pen, psychiatric patients. And the orphanages, not all of them, many of them become hospitals, or the kids are moved into psychiatric hospitals, or you even take existing asylums and they merging them with orphanages. These children have no rights under the law. And so they're wards of the state. And so they are their keepers are free to conduct whatever kind of experimental therapy, drugs, what have you, on these kids to see kind of what works. Just practice the science, and it's a dark moment in it's obviously a dark moment in the history of psychiatric science in the country. It it happened elsewhere too, but this was a kind of a unique sort of laboratory for that to happen. Anyway. Yeah, it was, and so I spend the time in the book showing that transition. These kids who are being
so they can't be witnesses anymore. Now they're mental cases. So whatever they did is their imagination. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. And plus, not to mention the obvious, vulnerability to all kinds of abuse. You know? So I start the book kind of exploring that. And I really made sure to be, I mean, it's a fictional setting. I mean, it's a fictional town, a fictional orphanage, and so on. The characters are, I developed them. But what happens, and I made sure of this, came from the records of survivors and witnesses, from the victims themselves. So I didn't make up any of this stuff. So there's a big chunk of the book that goes into that. Now, then at some point, really the novel, because this is a novel, it's historical fiction. It is not I mean, there are very good historical accounts. I encourage you to read them. This is not one of them. This is a novel. And the novel sort of takes over at that point where this young nun, who'd be in her early 20s, who is a teacher by training, who loves her kids, and is seeing this happen slowly, and seeing their degradation, and how they not all the kids survive this. It's a tragedy, and so she starts taking increasingly drastic measures to help them and to save them, and it kind of goes from there. The book, I mean, it is dark, it's heavy, but it moves. It's a book that takes on the aspect of a bit of a thriller by about the halfway or 2/3 point, and it just rolls. You can read it. I'll read it in a week.
I'm excited to read it. Yeah. I love it. And I think that, you people need to hear these stories, because, like everything else, the Roman Catholic Church has a lot to offer. It's educated or the whole world. And then there's also a dark side to it. And they have to be open about it and accept it. And I think, I think we're at an age now, because of social media, and we are at an age now where there is a community of alert citizens that are making a change. So hopefully, I just feel like somebody got to do something to help these kids. I mean, out there, and we need to have some stringent laws. We need to put, either legalize prostitution or whatever, and get these kids homes, and this is happened then, it's happening now.
It could happen now,
and you're not dealing with it, so
as recently as the 1990s, you remember where an entire generation of children in orphanages in Romania were denied any kind of social contact. This is 1990,
Yeah,
you
it's
know.
terrible. And
Um,
what is so
mhm,
sad is that there are so many displaced children, and because of abuse, many
yeah,
boarding houses have had to close down. And so these children have nowhere to be placed. And so now we have a new problem, which is foster care, and that doesn't seem to be working very well. So what are we going to do with all these children? And they're the future. So
yeah, yeah.
we really need more books like yours, and we need jolt people to consider what to do. So let's
Mhm.
get to the acting career. Tell me a little
Oh,
bit about the movies you've done, and
okay. The acting was funny. That was something it's funny because it just like writing, it was something I sort of knew intuitively that I could do. I never went to acting school. I'm from a family of doctors and engineers. I'm sort of the one artist in the family. But even growing up with that, I did not have any contact with people in the arts. Not really. Um, and I don't know. I mean, I grew up as a small kid doing funny voices and doing little skits and so on, and watched a lot of comedy on TV and so on, and I kind of got it in my DNA a little bit. But it wasn't until I was almost 40 that I first stepped on stage, and I got the bug. That one show of this is it. I need to be doing this. So I started off doing community theater. I was living in a small town at the time. I moved to Ottawa, the capital, and then I started out auditioning for things right away. Anything that I saw that I would be appropriate for, and I started getting parts. And I really this is through the 2000s, and I just absolutely loved every aspect of it, particularly theater, because mostly because the collaborative kind of nature of it. I got an agent. Um, I started doing small parts in TV series, mostly done in Canada. And then eventually I moved to Toronto, which is sort of the hub for that in Canada. And I got another agent. And mostly what I ended up doing was episodic TV shows where I would have usually a kind of a one-off character, because I speak French and I
yeah.
do have a way with accents. That is something that is not too common in Toronto. So whenever they needed an angry Frenchman, they would call me. You know.
That's
Oh, and some of this stuff. I mean, it's
that's
fun. It's fun to look at now. But I mean, they would like break out every stereotype you could imagine. And
yeah,
with the little mustache and they want me to put on a fake Parisian accent and zut alors and doing that sort of thing.
yeah,
And I mean, it was fun. And
yeah.
every once in a while, I got to do some theater, and that was sort of the reward for it was being able to get back on stage.
And most films and series are shot in Canada, so it is the mecca of.
Yeah.
So you're in the right place, and
Hmm.
so I want to wish you good luck. I've
Thank you.
really enjoyed interviewing you today.
Thank
Brightside,
you. Thank you so
please
much.
get the books. We'll make sure the links are available, and
Okay.
want you to get it. And
Dave Epiphany. Here it
yeah,
is.
here it
There it
is.
is with
Look
the
at all
awards
the
on it.
what's good for you. Yeah.
And the other one is The Perpetual Now, which was my first novel, and it came out in 2020. And yeah, I
Good
dig
for you.
them up, read them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you have it. Get the books, write a review, do it the Brightside way. And thank you for watching Discover Brightside. And if you want more interviews like this, hit the subscribe button and write us a comment. Tell us what you think. And we'd love to hear from you. Thank you for watching.